You are listening to Think Theory Radio. Radio. Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm your host, Damian Perdue, your hungry guide on this food ride of audio delights. And of course, I'm joined by Paulie C.
Yum, yum, yum.
Nice. And today the C stands for...
Culinary.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
You got it.
Delights.
Nice.
I don't know.
Culinary delights. Or culinary, whatever. Culinary expertise.
Chefs.
Yeah.
Carrots. Who knows, man?
Carrots.
Yeah.
And that other voice is our very special guest. Not only, he is a great chef, but he also has a great name because his name is also Damian.
Oh, yeah. How you doing? So happy to be here. I can't wait to hear what kind of great things you have to talk about and what I can answer for you.
Yes, because today we are talking about the future of food.
Like you did it like the Futurama guy.
Yeah. Welcome to the... actually, this is a topic that I've had in my notes for a while as a good show topic. And I know we've been talking about getting you back on the show.
Yeah.
And I thought, I know a chef. He knows a lot about food.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Enough.
Yeah, enough to get by. Enough to get paid.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but you've been a gourmet chef. You've worked all around the world. You in some of the greatest places and restaurants and facilities and hotels. But also, you now currently work in food manufacturing.
Correct. Yeah, I work in food manufacturing now. I have a life.
Got a 9-to-5.
Got a
401k.
That corporate 9-to-5. Yeah. So now, right now, I'm currently working as an executive sous chef for Factor, which is based with HelloFresh. Mm-hmm. So we are doing anywhere between 1 to 2 million meals a week. Wow. Shipped all over the United States. We're, with facilities here, Phoenix, Burr Ridge, Aurora.
Yeah.
We are opening Germany, and we have a couple more other areas over in Europe right now. So,
and that's another reason I thought it would be good to have you on for this subject, because that kind of directly correlates to what the future food is looking like. Where are we going to go? You know what I'm talking about? Not just what kinds of food we'll be eating, but with sustainability and climate change and kind of the easy access, like we were talking about before the show, and how people are, have become so, it's use the word lazy, but people are a little more lazy. They don't cook as much. They want everything kind of prepared. They want to order it off their phone. They want it there, rapid, everything's like that nowadays. And you're coming from that industry. But not only that, and I know you didn't work there, but when you had applied for a job at that one place that did, and I'm not going to say their name because they're not giving me any money, but that did a lot of the fast food special menus.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And you told me how they had this whole lab in there with all these food scientists.
Yeah.
And how, they would deconstruct an actual chef's recipe and then create kind of like the, synthetic version or...
Oh, yeah. Well, more it was like I would, there would be a chef to create a meal, let's say a chicken sandwich, right? And I could use any ingredient, whatever I would, and they call it a gold standard, right? That was what this meal needed to taste like, right? And then once you got that down to 100%, you would pass that along to food scientists, and they would break down everything to that and try to recreate their flavors with using their own products so that it could be made, I guess, cheaper, honestly, and more efficient, so that it would fit the different processes for your McDonald's, your Wendy's, your P.F. Chang's, the big corporate national restaurants, so that it would, create consistency across the board. So if you were at McDonald's in Alaska or McDonald's in Florida, you know, and you got this sandwich, it would always taste the same no matter where you got it from. So yeah, there's a lot of science behind that,
Weird
that stuff.
science.
Yeah. You know, it takes a long time to get one sandwich or a sauce made, and then to get it across the board, you're talking a couple, like 6-7 months, something like that.
And yeah, just when you described it to me, I never thought of that aspect of fast food, you know, as being some kind of weird science lab where they break down, you know, a Big Mac and then figure out, okay, how do we make this, you know, from other different chemicals or, you know, other food products that we can synthesize or create it to make it taste like something else.
Yeah.
And then, you know, reading different articles, obviously you get a lot of people online, you know, talking about, then there's a lot, of course, the conspiracy theory side of like the future of food. Like they're trying to get us to eat bugs, man.
Right. They're trying to get us to eat bugs, or McDonald's has got pink slime. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. All that stuff.
You know? So I liked how it tied in with what I was thinking about in terms of where is food headed, you know, especially we live in a country that's very gluttonous,
Yes.
you know, and we created fast food, right? And then you think about the time from when people were, more used to, making their own food and getting it from the farmer's market or from the farmers themselves, to the availability of fast food, which is spread around the world, is not that long ago.
No, it hasn't. It really isn't that long.
Right. I mean, it's got to be like less than 100 years, right? Like 40s or 50s-ish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but the old hamburger stands from like the 1920s, you know, for a 5-cent slider to where we're at now. Yeah, when you think about the scope of how long the earth has been around and people, it's a very short time.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you think about obviously has to do with like industrialization and, the kind of growth of cities, but where, that impact on the human diet and how we look at food, how we eat food, how we treat food. I mean, you go back 100, 200 years ago and you had such a split between, obviously the ruling class and people with a lot of money who are extravagant, they could pay for whatever they want, and then people who are just kind of nickel and diming whatever they could get, beans, rice, or certain things. Actually, last week I did the history of birthdays, and I didn't realize that it was until industrialization that normal people celebrating birthdays had a lot to do with the availability of food products cheaper. So making a birthday cake was for the elite until the industrialization of food.
Oh.
And then all those ingredients became so much cheaper that regular people could make a cake.
Right.
So this has been only in like the last 150 years, 100 years or something, you know? And so then you correspond that with, obviously fast food and everything now.
Yeah. I would equate that actually to what you just kind of brought up a couple seconds ago, is that I'd say it's the curse of convenience.
Yeah.
Right. And also, with industrialization, that tying in is, people having jobs, people working 40 hours, people needing to work overtime. They don't really have that much time at home to cook their food. So it's very convenient to go buy that hamburger. It's very convenient to go to the grocery store and get ready-made meals. I mean, Factor, that's what I do. I make ready-made meals. We deliver it to your house and you pop it in the microwave for 2 minutes, right? It's convenient.
Yeah.
And also look at ordering food now. Your Uber Eats, your Grubhub, your DoorDash. Those are super popular because it's extremely convenient. People are working so much. There's only so much time in the day. People can't can their own food, preserve their own food, ferment their own food, grow their own food, especially in a city atmosphere. I'd love to walk down my block and see somebody growing corn, in the front yard, but that's not going to happen. Chickens maybe, but corn and tomatoes, I don't see that happening in front yards around here.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, there is. I've seen some people in my neighborhood growing like chard or kale and stuff like that in the front yard. But yeah, there's and that's an interesting thing too, is I feel like what you brought up about people don't have the time, you know, and as the economy, you know, keeps creating more and more division, wealth division, and people have to work more. I mean, this isn't, you know, we're not in a society where like just working a 9 to 5 is going to get you by anymore.
Right.
You know, people have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, you know, and their kids are working, and they're, you know, the wife's working, or the husband's working, both, you know. And so, yeah, there isn't as much time, and it creates this, I guess, you know, and I hate to call it a necessity for this kind of rapid food. But I think people also lose the idea of doing what you're saying, like kind of growing your own tomatoes or, you know, and that availability is still kind of there. And I think we get like kind of mentally manipulated to think that we can't do it.
Right, right. You know, I can say, you know, there's many times, many days in my week where I, you know, wish I had the time or think I don't have the time to, you know, run fun experiments at my house, do little fermentation projects, go to the farmer's market on Tuesdays and Thursdays when they're happening and buy an excess of produce so that I can it, store it for the winter so that I have that stuff available to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, being lazy on a Friday night where it's my only day off and I'm ordering a Grubhub or something like that. Because, you know, it's just better for you. It's better for people. It's, you know, it's just better for your health as well.
Yeah. Better for your health, better for the environment. I mean, before the show, we were talking about just the simple fact of packaging.
Right. You know, yeah, when you start talking about the I'll say it again, the curse of convenience, right? There's a ton of companies right now that believe ready-to-made meals are the future of food. You know, not 20, 30 years from now, but the close future, the 5 years from now. Amazon, grocery stores are starting to create their own food manufacturing facilities, stuff like that. You can see it in our business, in our company, and how we're growing. But when you start doing that, you got to start thinking about, if, you know, people talk about sustainability, people talk about, you know, what are we doing to save the earth? What are we doing to reduce carbon footprints? What are we doing to just to help out, you know, stop throwing things away? But with this food manufacturing, you're also seeing a lot of single-use containers that are just being thrown away. It is creating a lot of waste.
Yeah.
A lot of waste.
Oh, no, it's insane.
Yeah. Compared to, you know, people who could grow their own food and use every part of the plant, whether it's for mulch or compost, stuff like that, or just finding different ways to use. Like, you know, when I made a hot sauce recently at home, you know, did a nice 21-day fermentation because I'm a geek like that. I really look into that. And, you know, I pureed the hot sauce, and when I was done pureeing, I took everything that was pureed and dehydrated all of that and created it into a seasoning for steaks. So not only did I have the hot sauce, right, I had this nice dry rub that was made from all those vegetables, and it still had that nice little twang of some lacto fermentation going on it. But, you know, being able to utilize the whole product is something, honestly, that I think if I was to say where would the future of food be, especially right now, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, I would say it would be to go back and have people learn and do what we used to do back on the Oregon Trail, right? When people were getting dysentery, when Jake got bit by a snake, you know, canning, preserving, fermentation, growing their own food, you know, just you know, utilizing everything that we can, whether it's animal, vegetable, anything like that, and also making sure that we're taking care of the soil and the land around us that we do all this farming on. Yeah,
and I do love when I see, you know, like the community gardens, and I know there's a facility on the west side. I can't remember the name right now, but it's a huge kind of like indoor farming facility where it's also a community center type of place where they teach young
they
kids how to
teach-
grow.
I believe there's a cheesemonger there too.
Yeah,
And
I think
there was
so,
a
yep.
brewery there as
Yep.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there's a couple of those in the city, and I'm sure in other cities. And, and those are great ideas. And I know, and, before the show, we were talking about how you have some restaurants are utilizing their own, facility in growing their own crops or growing. Or like when you were at the Emily.
Yeah, when I was at the Emily, we grew corn on the rooftop. We were growing different types of herbs, because back then we were doing, food from the Yucatan, Mexican food. So there was a lot of herbs that a lot of our purveyors didn't have, or they weren't growing, like espezote, stuff like that. So we were growing that on our rooftop, and we were able to utilize those. I mean, we even had right before I left, I thought they were putting bees up there.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, we were going to start having bees up there.
Yeah. And I know like Uncommon Ground on the one on Devon has, or at least they had it. It's been a while since I've been there, but they had a garden on their rooftop that they used. So all the vegetables, all the herbs and everything, they grew themselves.
Yeah.
And so if more places do things like that, it's I don't want to be doom and gloom about, we're running out of food and there's the overpopulation. There's no answer.
Not yet.
And I do think that there are people out there doing, sustainable agriculture and ways to create new kinds of food based on kind of ancient recipes and remedies. Like I was telling you about the little documentary I watched about this restaurant in Spain that the chef learned about this ancient process from Mexico that the indigenous people have been doing there for hundreds of years, where they use eelgrass, which is like a seagrass that grows a grain at the top of the grass. And it's much easier to grow. It's more sustainable because you're growing it underwater.
Yeah.
It helps with the ecosystem of the water itself and the marine life, things like that. Now, my only problem with those, at least currently, is it always seems to be, it's like this is some gourmet restaurant in Spain.
Yeah.
The Emily Hotel is a pretty high-end place. Even Uncommon Ground, it's, it's a little pricey for the average person.
Yeah.
How do we get that to the lay people, to the regular folk like us,
That's the issue, right? Because of to start commercializing something like that, that's when you have to start bringing in automation, right? That's when you start bringing in expensive equipment to start cultivating. I'm not too informed on the eelgrass, but I'm assuming it's not producing a lot, right? So you need a ton of space and a ton of area to cultivate enough to actually start feeding more than just one restaurant off of that.
Right, yeah.
And, now you're talking about taking up large amounts of a body of water, starting to put machines on there, right? What are these machines running on? They're running on diesel, they're running on, gasoline, some sort of power, right? That's just creating more usage of fossil fuels that will hurt the atmosphere, everything like that. More carbon emissions, everything like that.
Which actually, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get to a point that you were talking about before the show about AI and the usage of like robotics and everything like that, and how the kind of counterintuitive nature of that in terms of sustainability. All right. We'll be back with more Think Theory Radio right after this.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damian, and today I'm joined by Damian.
D squared, man.
Chef Damian Yopek. I don't think I said your last name last time, so
It's all right.
I'll give you the full shout outs.
I think everybody knows who I am.
Yeah, of
It
course.
helps when you both talk, though, so it doesn't sound like that Damien's a crazy person,
Damian, what do you think about this? Well, let me tell you, Damian.
I mean, a lot of times you never see us in the same space, so.
That is true.
True. That's true.
We actually, that's why we have to sit like 6 feet apart, because if we did come within like a couple inches of each other, the universe could explode.
Yeah.
But no one would believe me if I said that I hung out with both of you, right? Is that
No.
The best is when we're out somewhere, because it's a very rare, you might have, two Johns or two, Tims or whatever. But you hardly ever will run into two Damians at the same place, So when we're ever like out at a bar or something, it's hey, what's your guy's name? Oh, I'm Damien. Hey, I'm Damien.
I always try to let him say his name first so that I feel awkward when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Damien too. They're like, what? No. I like to party also.
Yeah. And a lot of people think we're messing with them too. They're like, no, there's no way. Like, no, look, yeah. No. Or it depends on on the play. Like, a lot of people know me as Demon, my graffiti name. So that's how, when we first met, I was Demon, he was Damien. So that was a good way to differentiate.
Yeah.
But it's hard to introduce yourself as that to people who don't really know why. Like, what Demon? What?
Right. And if I was just to go out and be like, yeah, Big Daddy Dame, they would just, I don't know who that guy is. What? Come on now. Nobody calls you that. No, everybody calls me that.
From the D as
That's
well.
right. From Detroit. There we go.
And so, before the break, we were talking about technology, and I brought up, how you made a good point before the show about AI and how that's also factoring into the new technology of food production, and then, combining it with the Uber and all the different, kind of phone apps to order food and everything. But how is it? It's, but then you brought up the point about the amount of energy it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first of all, I will say that I already told you, like, I dislike everything about this, and that's because I'm a chef. I use my hands, I use my skill, I use my technique. I use all of that. The last thing I want is, to have a restaurant where somebody's putting electrodes on their heads and their tongue and making, you sending pulses to them to make them think that they're eating more salt or sodium than they should be. But there are some looking into it and doing some research on it, there are some pros and there's some cons, of course, to all these. And a couple of the pros that I did see is that AI definitely helps in the background with like supply chain management. It could definitely help in food manufacturing with like precision automation, making sure that we are because a lot of in food manufacturing, like what we do with the ready-made meals, is there's a lot of forecasting, right? So if your numbers are off, like let's say we have a meal out there that's like 30,000 a week, but we called our numbers to do 40,000, they dropped, but we've already produced. Now that's food waste. But with AI, that totally can help with forecasting and stuff like that. But the cons to that is when you start to think about and AI and how it's being used every day with like Google's Gemini and Chat GPT and all that other stuff is the amount of energy that it actually uses, right? And I go back to like everybody thinking that when Tesla came out, the electronic car or any electronic car, Toyota, Tesla, whichever, is that, we're reducing carbon monoxide from car emissions and everything like that. But where's this electricity coming from? Where's all this electricity for AI coming from? We are generating more energy with coal, with natural gas, with other types of things to generate all this electricity for something that we thought is going to help us in the long run with carbon emissions and everything else like that.
Well, that made me think about the whole, the new lab-grown meat.
Lab-grown meat.
Which isn't, I can't say it's a craze because it's not really technically available yet. But this is obviously, the different companies are venturing into this, and they're trying to, they believe that this could help. It's like, and I get it in some way because you do have what happens with like the meat industry and how, they chop down rainforests to have cows graze, or they feed cows and pigs more grain than people could eat, different things like that. So if you did grow the meat out of molecules and you're not killing the animals, you don't need to cut down the rainforests, great. But if it is all controlled by robotics and AI and what is the ratio, what is the energy output compared to the other version, and cost and everything. And I was looking up some things, and now this is when they first started doing it, the first burger made of lab grown meat cost $325,000 to make back in 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
I remember when that first came out. I remember hearing about that and seeing pictures of it, and it just looked awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. It looks very strange. I know there's a company here in Chicago. I don't know if they're still active, and they're on the south side. They were one of the first companies to start working on this.
Yeah.
I think they were backed by like Bill Gates. Don't get the conspiracy started. They're trying to get us to eat lab grown. Sorry. But a few years ago, the cost of lab grown burger dropped down to like $12.
Yeah.
And then I just did a quick search while we were at break, and I guess right now there's no lab grown meat that's currently sold in any stores. There are 2 California companies, Good Meat and Upside Foods, that were approved to sell their lab grown chicken in the U.S. Back in June 2023.
Yeah.
So I guess that's only to a few select restaurants.
Of course.
Right. So I don't know if this is like, if it's economically sustainable yet for people to have lab grown meat, but that's just, that's just one weird aspect. Where does that go?
I see that going nowhere, honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't say that just because, once again, I say I'm a chef and I use my hands and my tools and everything like that. You can go back to when they first started talking about cloning.
Yeah.
Right. Cloning animals, cloning sheep, cloning stuff like that. Their original theory for cloning was that they could start cloning animals for consumption. Right. But let's think about it. Everybody on Earth right now, who's really going to get behind that? What consumer is going to get behind lab-grown meat based on bacterias or cloned meat? And then how are we going to come up with policies,
right,
to even regulate that kind of stuff, right? Because next thing you know, you're in a total recall moment, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is up in Mars, and you've got 4 different lamb that have been cloned. And I just don't see. I can't see that happening. I just don't see it happening. I see it as a fun experiment, and people talking about it and trying to raise points and to get it moving. But based upon consumers and based upon policies, I don't see how that could ever come around.
Well, and I mean, if you think of, and obviously something, technology could change and it could, rapidly introduce it into the market. But, if it's 12 years now from when they first started making lab-grown meat and it's not even in the stores yet, and there's only a few restaurants using it.
Right.
Yeah,
we've already got Beyond Burgers that are bleeding beet juice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then the other one, Impossible Burger, has that they use the heme molecule, which creates like the meaty texture and, makes it bleed. And then you were saying how they tested like.
Yeah. So it was like back when they were testing to get that to artificially make those vegetable patties and make it feel more like it was meat, and that was really actually wasn't even a ploy to get somebody who's a vegetarian or vegan to eat that. It was a ploy to get people who eat meat to eat these vegetable patties, is to make sure that they had that. You could cook it medium rare, you would cut it, it would bleed, but that heme is, that comes from hemoglobin, from bovine or whatnot. So that is still an animal, right? So those are vegetarian. But there was one experiment they were doing where they were injecting it into plants, and they were actually making like the plants bleed. And it was like cross cultivating, and it took multiple like regrowths of it. Like you grow something, steal a seed, regrow it, which is another good topic to talk about. But we're already onto the science fiction over here. So
hey, you talk about whatever, man. You know how we do.
Oh, of course.
Now, similar to the lab-grown meat is something that I personally could see this becoming bigger and more relative in people's homes, is 3D printed food.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Agree with that more than lab-grown meat, of course. They're already doing crazy things. I remember when they first started 3D printing food, it was like, look at this little mushroom we 3D printed. And now they're doing whole ribeyes based in vegetable product, right? Yeah. And you can cut and portion steaks from this whole ribeye, and it's got different different colorization, flavors, tones, textures in it, so it actually looks like. Well, it doesn't actually look like, but it could look like a perfectly marbled ribeye steak.
Yeah.
You know, there was a funny thing I was telling you about it, though, is that the one thing that throws me off on that is, one, it looks like it came from a Play-Doh factory, right? And two, you can see the trace lines of the 3D printer going through it. So not only you got that beautiful marbleization that you'd want to see in a ribeye, a true beef ribeye, but... Now are we going to start counting the 3D printed rings to check quality on how good that is, right? This is a real Angus grade 3D trail.
Yeah,
ribeye.
you see it has 5 trails. That's that's when it's top quality.
Yeah,
That's the,
it's like A5 Wagyu. Your 5 trail 3D
USDA
printed.
certified.
Yeah.
3D printed meat.
Yeah.
But I could see, as that technology becomes more affordable and also smaller for the home. I've always said, when I first saw 3D printing, and then especially when they started doing the food, I thought, well, this is the great-great-grandfather of the replicator from Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they're like, give me a hot tea, or and they just...
Yeah, or what was it, the Jetsons?
Yeah.
Where they could just pick whatever they wanted, and it just instantly pops up. I can't imagine, though, how much work would go into, like, what you would have to have at your home. Like, not, I shouldn't be doing this thinking while we're on the radio, because, like, now my brain is just going all over the place, because I'm like, oh man, would they have to do cartridges of vegetable product? Now my mind is going everywhere.
Hey, that's good. It's Think Theory Radio.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Nice tie-in.
So, but yeah, no, totally. And I think I had a 3D printer pen thing that I thought was going to be the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, I'm going to do like sculptures, but it did not work that good. And, and I feel like that's probably the same with, kind of 3D printed food.
Right.
But yeah, I'm looking up stuff, and there's pictures of like 3D printed pie, and there's like a 3D printed sandwich, and it says there's the ink for 3D food printing is like food grade paste or liquid. Yeah. Usually extruded through a nozzle. And I guess, and then you can shape it however you want. You could put it different colors.
Yeah, I think. Remember when Bill Nye had that show on Netflix? Bill Nye destroys the world or something like that. I think in one of his episodes he had something with 3D food, because I swear there was 3D printed pizza on it.
I didn't see that one, but you're probably right.
Yeah.
You just made me think of this pizza ATM that I saw in France once. That was so weird. It was like a vending machine of pizza, like hot pizza.
Right.
And it was supposed to be the new craze. Like it was supposedly going to pop up all around the States.
Yeah, they were supposed to be like wood-fired or coal-fired flavor,
Yeah. But I just remember these, we were thinking about trying it, and there were these, they were like French, I think the Navy or something, but they had uniforms on it. Yeah. They had just got one, We're like, so what's up with it? And they're like, it is crap. Look at this. It is cardboard. What is this?
Yeah.
We're like, well, yeah, I'm not getting that.
Yeah.
It just looks so weird.
I mean, you see the things on YouTube all the time with people eating out of vending machines in like Japan or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have the pizza vending machines, stuff like that.
And I am surprised like that hasn't caught on more here in terms of how many, like Japan has like vending machines for everything.
Yeah.
You don't see that. I've seen a little bit in Europe. I haven't seen it anywhere really here.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing that Americans are really. I mean, it could turn into it, but that's just not a part of our culture. I mean, vending machine to get soda out of it.
Yeah, or like chips or whatever.
But hot food from a vending machine. I mean, I don't know. I'd try it. I'd go for it. I mean,
those I don't remember the brand name, but it's like a farmer. It kind of has like some farmer market name kind of in the title, and they have like different organic it's a vending machine, but it has a different. It'll have like little salads. It'll have some sandwiches.
Like Farmer's Edge or Farmer's.
It's something like that. Yeah, those are pretty good.
Yeah, no, those are good. Yeah, they come in the clear mason jars, and it's just like a layered salad.
Yep.
And then you just turn it out, or like a old McDonald's McShaker, put the dressing in it, shake it up a bit, eat it right from the jar. Yeah.
Yeah, those aren't bad.
Yeah, those are
something
everywhere.
like that. Yeah, that'll be good.
Farmer's fridge.
Farmer's fridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually was trying to get them to get one here at the station, but they weren't going for it.
It's a sore subject here.
Yeah.
Vending machines.
Yes.
Hey, see if they'll at least get you a ramen noodle vending machine. Come
Right.
on.
That might
Those
be
are
asking
actually
for
pretty
a lot.
dope. Yeah.
We're lucky we get the hot water.
Yeah.
That's
Hey, don't get my show canceled, man.
Yeah,
Asking for too much.
I'm just saying, I would
getting me in
love
trouble.
a ramen vending machine on the corner here.
Right?
Yeah, give me some of that chili lime shrimp.
That, and then you need, because I know in Tokyo they have like vending machines that sell like 40 ounces of beer. You can get that.
Yeah,
and that.
100%.
You're set.
100%. I mean, everybody already walks around the city thinking open intox is okay, so let's do it. Yeah.
Real quick though, before we take a break, so it popped in my head because I'm talking about vending machines. And last night I walked by one of these. I think this place was called Picnic or something. I know there's several different facilities and different names, but it ties back into the whole rapid delivery Uber and DoorDash stuff, where they now have these storefronts that I don't exactly know how it works, but I think there's like a huge kitchen in the back and they just make a bunch of different products.
Oh, grab and go.
Yeah, but then it's only for the delivery guys. Like you order through Uber, DoorDash, they go pick it up from this facility. It has like a bunch of different lockers and they go in and
ghost kitchens.
Yeah. But like with these lockers, and so there's like nobody in there. You walk into the storefront. There's no, customer service or anything. And then the Uber guy just goes up to the whatever locker it says, and he pulls out, and there's, a rotisserie chicken in one, and there's some egg rolls in the other, and it's like in the front. That's kind of crazy to me too.
Yeah, I actually toured one of those facilities once over in South Loop. They had built one. And it was like 12 different kitchens, 12 different chefs. It was like they were creating their own restaurant in their own little space. And they had like certain guidelines they had to follow. Yeah. But other than that, they could just do whatever they want. As long as they had a menu that was out like 2-3 weeks ahead of time with nutritional facts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they would just, it's like like I said, they had their own little restaurant. People would order off of DoorDash. They give it some cute little name like Wayne's Wacky Hot Dogs or whatever, and he'd have like 7 different types of hot dogs, and you ordered from there, and you just set it in a locker. Uber would come, they had a code, pop the door open, that was a specific order, and each individual order for every different restaurant, Uber, DoorDash, all of them could just come in. And I believe this one, if you lived in the neighborhood and you could order pickup, that you could just walk in.
You could go in there,
yeah, and just you got a code sent to your email, and you could just open up your locker and go home.
See, that's crazy to me too, because it's not, it's not necessarily cost effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that type of facility, you would think, okay, well, it should make it cheaper then. Ideally, right? I mean,
well, when you think about it, what is it? It's convenience.
Yeah.
Right? And people pay for convenience. Right? So now you've got yourself pretty much a takeout food court from the mall. You're just missing a Sbarro's. Right? And it's just very convenient because in one little shop, now you've got 12 different restaurants with 12 different options, and you're not really... You're open for everybody. Anybody can get something there instead of being a restaurant that like just does Mediterranean food. And what if somebody doesn't like Mediterranean food? They're not going to go eat there. So you're not alienating anybody.
I get that. Yeah. But my thing is, okay, if you went to a food court, right, and you have a bunch of different restaurants, you have people that work there and they have to get paid. So the cost goes into that. But we've been so kind of like swindled by the convenience of ordering food, and especially after the pandemic, and they just like price gouged everything everywhere. Right. And people got used to it. I think it's a combination of that and also the younger generations that are have grown up in the era of doing everything on their phones, that kind of convenience they're willing to pay for.
Exactly.
And where, you're talking about like, used to be, you get 3 or 4 tacos and it was under $10.
Yeah.
Now you're paying $40 to get it delivered to your house.
Yeah, because I did DoorDash because I just didn't feel like getting out the house.
Exactly.
I paid for the convenience.
Yeah.
Was I happy about it? Oh no, so much regret afterwards.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So like, if you go to this thing where there's nobody working, there's nobody there, it should be cheaper.
Yeah,
You know?
It should be. But there's the thing: nobody's pushing back.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's pushing back on the convenience. Just like you hear people complaining about every time, no matter where you walk in, as long as you're using your debit or your credit card, there's always some sort of tip.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And nobody's pushing back on that.
It's true.
So now you're everywhere is asking for a tip, even if they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Tip. Because nobody's pushing back. Nobody's asking those questions. Nobody's trying to fight the system.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're doing it right here on
We
Think
are.
Theory Radio.
That's what we do here.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get back into the virtual reality food, the extended reality. Will we all just be eating flavored, scented, salted spoon gels in the future? On Think Theory Radio right after this. Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damian, and I'm joined by Chef Damian.
That's right.
Yes, Chef.
Yes, chef. We chef.
Ah, oui. And we were talking about the future of food. Where are we going? Will it be sustainable? Will we just be eating pills, capsules of nutrients? And then our brain is tricked by our virtual reality headsets. Mm-hmm. And I did find, and I sent you this article, which was pretty interesting, about extended reality, which is a fusion of virtual reality and augmented reality, and how there are these companies that are trying to utilize the technology of, kind of tricking your brain, right? Because you don't just taste the food; it's a mix of sight, smell, texture, and even sound, right? Because it is kind of when you hear the cooking, or you hear like the crisp, like lettuce crack or something adds to the experience, and you know what you're eating. Mm-hmm. So these concepts is about kind of making, what their claim is, we're making it more sustainable, right? So you have like a digital lollipop, which was developed by researchers at National University of Singapore, which uses electrical currents to stimulate the tongue, simulating sweetness, sourness, or even spiciness without any actual sugar or spice. Mm-hmm. Or you mentioned like the salt spoon, where they create this spoon that has a sodium flavor to it, but there really is no sodium. And then you can make any dish taste like that without adding salt, which in theory sounds good, right? Because you have people who have, hypertension or diabetes, and you could have them using the technology to avoid that, but still get the taste. But also, I always, I said to you before the show, it's like, okay, that's if the companies are admirable, and if they're doing it truthfully, and if you're going to these places, because part of what they're talking about is you could have a like plant-based protein, right, that doesn't look like anything, but because you have on VR headsets and they have some kind of diffuser, scent diffuser, and you have, some other kind of scent triggers that'll make you think you're eating like a Wagyu steak.
Yeah.
But it's just a lump of mush.
Right. I hate it. I hate all of it. And you can see the look on my face right now. Yeah. Oh man, food is such a sensory overload, and why people love it so much. Why so many people are eating out in restaurants as well too. Besides convenience, or they just don't know how to cook. But what they do love about, and why people are foodies. And, why people spend so much time even if they aren't chefs or go to culinary school, why people are so informed about food and what it is and how it tastes and everything is because of the sensory explosion that you get when you eat food, when you are around food, because you need every single thing. You need your nose, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your tongue, everything. And it's almost like when the army comes in and they overload all your senses and you go into a seizure because everything's just there. That's what food is to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what food is to me. Look at how excited I got to talk about that and just how blah I was when you're like, let's talk about a sodium spoon, bro. Right. Like, it's just that the aromas. I don't need electrodes and different types of aroma cartridges just trick your mind. I mean, I can give you a glass of citric acid and make you smell a lemon, and you would think you're sipping on some country time lemonade right there because we are tricking your mind with real stuff, right? I don't need to inject you with electrodes or augmented reality, even though.
You could.
I could, but
well, the other aspect of this I thought was kind of interesting, and I know you're a gamer somewhat. Was the concept of utilizing the same extended reality technology into video games, to where how with Grand Theft Auto and these other kind of immersive games are getting more and more realistic, and you could have. Within these games, you're actually like sitting down at a restaurant and tasting food within the game. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one thing I could get behind. All right. That's not replacing how we eat or how we do anything like that. That's part of the augmented reality, virtual reality that you see in gaming right now. Like, I would love to be in the middle of Jumanji right now and, eating one of those old school, turkeys that you find on the floor to get health in the old Nintendo games, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Those turkeys always look so good.
Right.
Like, I just want my heart health to go up. Give me more of them turkeys, man.
You just made me think of not a video game, but do you remember the Chili Willy cartoon where the pancakes?
Yeah,
more pancakes, more butter.
Pancakes.
Man, that would make me so hungry, and I wanted those cartoon pancakes so bad. And imagine with this, I can eat those pancakes. They put on the virtual headset, little scent diffuser, smelling like batter and butter.
God, I could totally feel what Homer Simpson feels like when he sees a donut, just tongue hanging out, drooling all over the place. Okay, I'm behind that. Let's do it. Let's get it done.
And speaking of Homer Simpson, because we brought it up, the tobacco thing, right? Where it was the Simpsons episode where I forget what happened. Somebody was growing tomato, and then I don't remember the exact plot, but essentially
Homer had to run for whatever. I think he got a dueling glove and started slapping everyone, and some Southern man was waiting at dawn with pistols. So Homer dips out, goes to the farmland, and he doesn't know how to farm, but he's got to survive out there. So he buys. He's at the feed and seed store or whatever, and accidentally combines the seeds for the tomato and tobacco, and he just plants it, and it makes this hybrid. That's,
and it looks like a tomato, but it's tobacco on the inside.
It's like tasty, but then it has a bad aftertaste or something like that. It tastes like grandma, according to Ralph.
Yeah.
And
but it gave you like a nicotine buzz.
Yeah,
right?
like everyone got addicted. It was like they liked the tomato, but it like got them addicted.
Yeah.
It tastes like grandma's kisses.
That's it.
Yep. But now somebody actually did it. Well, several years ago, right? You had looked it up.
I looked it up. I think like 2003. Some guy from Oregon grafted a tomato plant onto a tobacco plant, and while the leaves had nicotine in them, the tomato or the fruit itself didn't have any nicotine in it. So,
I just thought that was so nuts that, and who knows what that could lead into.
Well, I mean, that could lead into a lot of things. Like I was describing to you earlier today with the splicing.
With the heme or
the butternut squash, and buttercup squash, right? It was Chef Dan Barber in New York from Blue Hill and his farms, and then Cornell University. They took and spliced butternut squash and butternut or buttercup squash to create what is called honey nut squash. Now, honey nut squash is a smaller version of butternut, looks exactly like it, uses less water to produce, but also in that sense as well, it intensifies the flavor because of less moisture of that, and it's a smaller vegetable.
Yeah.
And it you can use it in more ways than you could just butternut squash, and you just get more flavor out of it. But that's totally, that's what people I think should really be looking into is if we're gonna start, instead of cloning animals, let's splice different plants together, fruits and veggies, and see how we can get things to grow in areas where stuff really doesn't grow, like how are we going to get stuff to grow in the desert or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. Or, grow underwater, or you could combine plants that, let's say, are more resilient or grow faster, with another plant that's more nutrient rich, and I do think there, like I said, not to be all, doom and gloom with the weird science stuff, but I do think there's the possibility, the potential to utilize that kind of technology that you're talking about, and then also these kind of ancient practices that, indigenous people have been doing years, farming techniques that are more sustainable, and, that was the whole thing, like when, the Pilgrims came here and the Native Americans taught them how to, like, grow the corn. Yeah. They couldn't figure it out. They're like, no, you have to use, I forget which kind of fish, but it was like you have to put the fish in the ground, and that'll help soil. Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, there's so many different ways that we could go, and of course we only have like a minute or so left. But I wanted to mention like edible insects because that's also part of like the conspiracy. Like they're trying to get us to eat bugs, and it's like, especially in America, they don't understand that in a lot of the world, people have been eating insects for years.
It's a whole lot of protein, and some are really delicious. When I was at the Emily, I made a chicken liver mousse tart that I used chicotanas, or the flying ants from Oaxaca, and those. It was so good.
Yeah,
but we did chicken liver mousse. We did a chicotana and coconut flan.
Yeah,
we were just putting them in everything, and it.
Did you guys use chapalinas?
No,
the crickets, the little crickets.
Yeah. No, we just had so much fun with the ants.
Yeah,
that, not a lot of people bought those specific dishes, but we were having fun.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I think here it's like people aren't used to it. They think it's something really weird, and it's like, no, you go around. I mean, in Asia, in Mexico, it's down. My brother lives down in Oaxaca, and you go around and on the street markets they sell. There's just big baskets of different size crickets, and some of them have, the habanero powder on them, and others have other ones, or they make like cricket salt that you rim the glass of mezcal with and stuff. So that's we'll see. There's now a one called Aspire Food Group, which is the world's largest ever cricket farm, and tied into the technology. It's powered by IoT, which is the Internet of Things.
Oh,
and that company already operates scalable, flexible cricket farms in the U.S. So there's already cricket farming here. So we'll see.
I'm into that. I'm into it.
You get the smashed cricket blocks. Protein bars.
Yeah. Or we'll do some cricket smash burgers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show again, Chef.
Yeah, loved it, man. Anytime.
And we'll be back again next week and every Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. right here on WCPT 820 Think Theory Radio.